Back now on America's Forum, and as promised, we want to talk about birthright citizenship. That is the act of instantly rewarding American citizenship to any child born here. Let's talk more about it with the dear lady who's been our guest this entire hour from Newsmax, New York, Liz Peek, who wrote a column earlier this week for the Fiscal Times entitled Birthright Citizenship, the New Immigration Scam. Liz, the obvious question is this: what makes it a scam?
Well, first of all, I came at this really kind of wondering to myself, why is it that this is our policy, and is it the policy of every other country on earth? And the answer is absolutely not. Canada and the U.S. now are the only countries amongst developed nations that still reward being born on our soil with instant citizenship, which does two things. One, it encourages a great big baby tourism business where tens of thousands of Chinese, for example, come here every year, drop a child, and then that child is automatically a U.S. citizen. They go home to China or they come back whenever they want, and the minute they're 21, they can bring in their family members who also become U.S. citizens, are granted permanent residence or whatever. So I think that's sort of a disgrace to trying to have a rule of law in this country. Secondly, I think we really have a big logjam on immigration policy in our country. And one of the issues is this: people who resist or who don't want to see the amnesty provision go through that will allow 4 or 5 million people to stay here who are illegal basically say, look, we're going to do that, and then a whole flood of new immigrants will come into the country because they'll expect that the same thing will happen to them a few years down the road. And that's a legitimate argument because it's happened before. What we have to do is diminish the appeal of coming to the U.S. illegally. And the biggest draw, without any question, is the fact that the minute you get here and you have a child, that child is your pathway to legal status, if not citizenship. I just don't think this is something we've really thought through in this country. It's even the case, which I find pretty remarkable, that a foreign diplomat here who is not under the jurisdiction of the U.S., if they have a child, that child today is given a passport and a Social Security number. And everyone knows that's wrong.
And that's the thing I want to follow up on. Because, Liz, 8 years ago, I wrote the book, Whatever It Takes, and I devoted a good bit of it to the history of birthright citizenship. The 14th Amendment reads in part, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. It's that clause, subject to the jurisdiction thereof, that Senator Jacob Howard, who helped to draft this amendment, talked about on the Senate floor, and he made it clear that birthright citizenship would not apply to those in the diplomatic corps posted here by another nation, or those who were here illegally, or those who were visiting. How did the courts take the clear intent that Senator Howard made in that legislative debate and change it through court decisions?
Well, here's the thing. My impression is, having spoken to people who are very involved in this topic, that the courts haven't addressed this. In fact, everyone understands that diplomat kids should not be citizens, but in following up, it turns out that the Social Security Administration realizes it's a problem, but can't figure out how to monitor this situation. And this is the kind of thing that makes you want to hit your head against a wall in the United States. That seems like, something we could actually figure out. But the answer is, I think it is a constitutional amendment. I think there's going to be a challenge. I hope there will be challenges to the broad application of it. It was also never adjudicated that someone here illegally having a child, that child should be a U.S. citizen. Because after all, if you're not here legally, maybe you're not really under the jurisdiction of the United States.
That's the argument. You got it right. Yeah, that's absolutely the case.
Right.
So I
think this is fertile ground.
It's something we may not agree on every issue on the border, but we agree here. And of course, David Vitter introduced an amendment in the Senate. It is worth noting that you don't have to have a constitutional amendment to repeal the 14th Amendment. This can be done by statutory language. David Vitter is working on it right now. We'll keep an eye on that. And we'll talk about this issue more as events warrant. Liz Peek, to you, our thanks for joining us this entire hour. Have a great weekend, and America's Forum will continue right after.